Okay, let's unpack this. We are diving deep into an era that fundamentally changed what it means to be human, the Bronze Age,
Right.
stretching roughly from 3300 BC to 1200 BC. And this wasn't just, a slight technological upgrade using metal tools and weapons.
No, not at all. It was a societal supernova.
A supernova, I like that.
It truly was. When we talk about the Bronze Age, we are talking about the moment human society achieved critical mass.
Okay.
This is the period that delivered nearly all the foundational building blocks of civilization. Standardized writing systems, widespread use of the wheel, monumental construction.
Like the first pyramids and these massive irrigation projects?
Exactly. Canals, huge infrastructure. It's when large cities coalesced into complex kingdoms, ruled by powerful, often single sovereigns.
And the typical history course focuses almost exclusively on those sovereigns, on Mesopotamia and Egypt. But today, our deep dive mission is a bit different. Our source material gives us a whirlwind global tour, specifically focusing on the 10 most significant or, best preserved Bronze Age sites worldwide.
Right. We want to show you, the listener, just how varied and, frankly, how globally sophisticated these cultures really were.
And what's fascinating, right off the bat, is how that list forces us to redefine the Bronze Age.
How so?
Well, it clearly shows that this level of complex development wasn't limited to the traditional Fertile Crescent. We'll be connecting dots across ancient Europe, the remote Arabian Gulf, and the Mediterranean islands.
So we're moving geographically.
Yes, and by doing that, we can really dissect the different forms that power took, whether it was early urban planning, defensive architecture, or these vast logistical trade networks that literally held the ancient world together.
That reframing, seeing the Bronze Age as a global interconnected system, is key. So let's start where history traditionally begins, but use these sites to complicate that narrative.
Sounds good.
We're in segment 1, the cradle and the crossroads. We'll start with the traditional heartlands and then pivot to the crucial trading spots on the periphery.
Okay, so if we're starting with the political and symbolic heart of the Bronze Age, we have to mention Babylon.
Of course, in modern-day Iraq.
Exactly. This ancient metropolis, founded nearly 5,000 years ago, it basically defined what a massive, influential capital could be. It was a center of high culture, profound law.
And relentless war. Its name is, it's just synonymous with the era.
It is. And here's the initial complication. Despite its titanic historical importance, relatively little of that true Bronze Age grandeur remains.
Right. Because of later destruction, remodeling by other empires, and modern conflict.
All of it. So while you might see fragments of Nebuchadnezzar's later palace or some old city wall lines today, it really serves as a monument to history's transience. It reminds us why we have to look elsewhere for tangible preservation.
And that lack of preservation is a stark contrast to our next site, isn't it?
A huge contrast. We're going to Khatna Archaeological Park in Syria. This was a thriving ancient Mesopotamian city located on the strategic crossroads known as Tel Mishref.
And it was first occupied way back in the 3rd millennium BC.
Right. Its location made it absolutely vital. It sat precisely where the interests of a powerful Mitanni Empire and the ancient Egyptians collided.
So it basically became the geopolitical swing state of the late Bronze Age. It grew into this local kingdom of immense power because it controlled that trade and political balancing act.
It did, exactly. And you see that power expressed in the architecture. The highlight of Khatna is the Royal Palace.
Okay.
Constructed around 1650 to 1550 BC. We're talking about a colossal structure featuring over 80 rooms on just the ground level alone.
80 rooms.
Just on one floor. It wasn't just big, it required staggering administrative and logistical sophistication to manage a diplomatic hub that large. Think about the scribes, the diplomats, the logistics officers needed to run a trade choke point between two superpowers.
It's a real testament to centralized power, which unfortunately also made it a target.
A huge target. That palace and much of the city was devastated during the Hittite conquest in 1340 BC.
So if Khatna shows us the fragility of these massive political centers, the evidence shifts dramatically when we look just south toward the Arabian Gulf.
Precisely. The Bronze Age needed more than just warlords and palaces. It needed supply lines.
Right, the logistics.
To understand those logistics, we need to shift our focus to the UAE and Qatar, starting with the Jebel Hafit tombs in the UAE. These structures date back 5,000 years to the Hafit period.
They look so unique, these distinctive, domed, beehive-like tombs, composed entirely of stacked, natural, rough-cut stones. You see about 500 of these scattered across the landscape. The sheer scale implies a massive societal investment in ritual.
It does. And the sources suggest that up to 10 individuals were presumed buried in any single tomb.
So this isn't about an individual pharaoh. This speaks to something more communal.
It could be communal, maybe kinship-based, or perhaps even early stratification where certain family lines controlled access to these monumental structures. It shows wealth, certainly, but wealth channeled into the afterlife.
And right near there, we have the Hili Archaeological Park, also in the UAE.
Active through the 3rd millennium BC. The settlements and tombs here belong to the Al-Nar culture.
For our listener, that's a distinct civilization known for its large, circular, collective tombs and really decorative pottery.
Very decorative. And the Hili Grand Tomb is a centerpiece of that culture. What's amazing about it is the level of artistic detail, meticulously cut stone blocks forming the walls, and these beautiful high-relief carvings of animals and human figures right at the entrances.
Why do you think they'd spend so much effort on the exterior of a burial site?
It speaks to a deep need for public commemoration, I think, for spiritual recognition that's meant to be seen by the living.
This evidence really establishes the UAE as a rich center in its own right. But if we connect this back to that integrated global system idea.
Then we have to look at Al-Khor Island in the Arabian Gulf, off the coast of modern-day Qatar.
Yes.
Al-Khor is arguably the most insightful site in this segment for understanding the Bronze Age mechanism.
The nuts and bolts of it.
Exactly. It wasn't an empire or a city. It was a simple yet absolutely critical Bronze Age way station around the late 3rd to early 2nd millennium BC. It was a protected port where seafarers and traders would stop.
So why was that stop so essential? Why is this little island so crucial?
Because ancient maritime logistics were just brutal. Traders needed safe harbor to weigh anchor overnight, especially with unpredictable weather. They needed secure spots for ship repair, for processing goods like fish, and critically, preparing bulk materials like charcoal.
Which was essential for smelting bronze itself.
Right. Al-Khor represents the foundational, unglamorous infrastructure that allowed the luxury trade of the Bronze Age, the copper from Oman, the silks, the precious stones, to actually function. It proves the Gulf was central, not peripheral, to global commerce.
I think that shift in focus from the powerful kings of Babylon to the logistics managers at Al-Khor is a perfect transition point.
It is.
We've covered the cradle and the crossroads. Now, in segment 2, we leap into the Mediterranean islands for examples of profound sophistication and enduring mystery.
We move from the vast plains and trade deserts to volcanic islands and rocky coasts. And let's start with an archaeological celebrity. Crete on Santorini, Greece.
The Minoan Pompeii.
The Minoan Pompeii. This site is famous because its preservation is exceptional.
And while everyone knows it was preserved by volcanic ash, what's truly astonishing is what that ash captured. Crete was an advanced urban settlement, maybe 20 hectares in size.
Huge for the time.
Right. This wasn't a village. It was a miniature city with multi-story homes, sophisticated drainage systems, and evidence of specialized craft production.
The detail of daily life that survived is, well, it's unparalleled outside of Egypt. We see multi-story buildings that aren't just for storage, they're designed for comfort and light.
And the frescoes.
And the walls are covered in these vivid, energetic fresco scenes of nature, ritual, daily life. It shows you that this culture placed a high value on aesthetics and color, even in non-elite buildings.
It really challenges the idea that Bronze Age sophistication was reserved only for temples or palaces.
It does. It makes you wonder how the eruption, which ultimately preserved it, affected the global balance of power, given that such an advanced center was suddenly just wiped off the map.
Absolutely. Now let's pivot from perfect preservation to enduring mystery with Stonehenge de Barmini in Sardinia, Italy.
This is the prime example of the Nuraga.
A megalithic stone structure built by the island's ancient inhabitants between, about 1500 BC and 800 BC.
That's the range, yes.
These structures are incredible. They're built with huge, dry stacked stones, no mortar at all. And the main highlight at Stonehenge is its central tower. It's physically imposing, but structurally, it's a riddle.
It really is. What's fascinating is how little is definitively known about the purpose of the 7,000 plus Nuraga structures across Sardinia.
7,000.
Over 7,000. They're generally considered defensive fortifications, but the complex of Barmini tells a more nuanced story. Surrounding that central tower is a whole mosaic. Homes, likely theater, temples, all seemingly integrated.
So we have two competing theories here. One, these were centralized defensive castles for local chieftains.
Right.
And two, they were decentralized communal gathering and storage hubs, a way for scattered rural populations to come together for trade or ritual.
And I tend to lean toward the latter. when you look at the layout of Barumini. The density and variety of functions ritual space alongside domestic space suggests it was more than just a keep.
So a different kind of social organization.
Exactly. Maybe one that didn't rely on the single powerful king structure we saw in Khatna, but instead on communal consent and planning. That contrast is vital.
That's a great setup for segment 3, where we head even further west into Northern and Western Europe. This is where we see the intense industrial base, the most enduring art, and the longest-lasting ritual sites of the Bronze Age. Let's start with the sheer scale of industry.
The bronze in Bronze Age required massive, relentless resource extraction. And that leads us to the Great Ormond ancient mines in Wales, UK. Uncovered unexpectedly in 1987, these copper mines, they're beneath a prominent limestone headland and date back over 4,000 years.
The scale is absolutely staggering, and frankly, it's rarely discussed with the gravitas it deserves. This is thought to be one of the largest known prehistoric mines in the world.
It is. They were pulling copper out of the ground there for a millennium and a half, and they were finally abandoned around 600 BC.
That's the industrial engine supporting the entire spread of bronze technology across the continent.
It is the dark, essential foundation. The skill required, moving rock, ventilation, drainage, year after year for 1,500 years. It speaks to a mastery of materials and labor organization on par with the great palaces.
It also raises a question, though.
What's that?
We call this the Age of Bronze, defined by the metal, yet we rarely focus on the environmental and social costs of running a dangerous operation like Great Orm for a millennium and a half.
That's a great point. It was a massive societal investment, not just a casual pursuit.
Moving from that intense industry to the art that industry enabled, we look at the Tanum rock carvings in Sweden.
Yes, so we shift from subterranean mining to monumental rock art. This is a UNESCO-listed collection of Bronze Age etchings, dating from around 1700 BC to 500 BC.
It's a huge body of work.
It's tremendous, spread over a wide area near the modern town of Tanumshede. The sheer volume is astounding. Roughly 600 carving sites in the heritage area, boasting tens of thousands of individual images. You can visit accessible groups like Vitlik, Asperberget, and Litzelby today.
So what does the content tell us about Scandinavian Bronze Age culture? We see these massive depictions of ships, hunting scenes, rituals.
Right, the ships are everywhere.
Why ships specifically?
The prevalence of ships suggests that maritime travel, maybe for trade or raids, wasn't just a practical necessity. It was a deep cultural obsession, maybe even a spiritual vehicle.
Interesting.
The fact that they covered the living rock with these narratives, stories of power, survival, faith for over 1,000 years, shows that cultural communication and the recording of myth were as important as weaponry and wealth. It was a way to make the landscape itself a permanent library.
Turning the land into text. I love that. Finally, we jump over to Ireland for a look at enduring ceremonial land. Carnfree.
Yes. This complex, set on a high ridge, comprises 16 monuments, many of which date back to the Bronze Age.
What's crucial about Carnfree is the incredible continuity of ritual use, right?
That's the key. While it gained later fame as the inauguration site for the O'Connor kings, the High Kings of Connaught, its core features, like its series of massive burial mounds and the standing stones, point to a deep ritual significance stretching way back into the Bronze Age.
So why does a sacred site like that survive the collapse of entire political and social systems?
Because the landscape itself held memory. The early Bronze Age importance was rooted in either funerary practice or territorial marking. Even when the original beliefs changed, the landscape itself was marked as a place where power or spirituality resided.
So later civilizations, like the High Kings, didn't ignore it.
No, they adapted it. They grafted their own legitimacy onto the deep roots established by people 3,000 years earlier. It shows us how potent sacred geography truly is.
This deep dive has truly complicated the traditional Bronze Age narrative. Just quickly summarizing the sweep, we saw the sophisticated urban centers of Akrotiri preserved perfectly.
The complex, ruined palaces of Khatna.
The foundational, intense industrial scale of the Great Orm mines.
And the essential tradeway stations like Alcor Island.
It's an undeniable portrait of global connection.
It is. The Bronze Age provided the foundational building blocks for every major civilization that followed. Formalized writing, mass construction, organized warfare. But the common thread across all these disparate global sites, from the mystery fortresses of the Sardinian Neraag to the beehive tombs of the Gulf, is a unified, integrated system.
You see the reliance on long-distance, secure trade through places like Alcor, the necessary centralization of power we saw in Katna's 80-room palace.
And the massive mastery of materials demanded by the great armed mines. It all works together. You can't have one without the other.
It all connects.
Exactly. It forces us to move past the concept of localized ancient history and realize how interdependent these early cultures were. They didn't just survive, they thrived together through material exchange and shared ideas.
And if you step back and look at these sites, we often associate the Bronze Age primarily with political necessity, pyramids, defense, epic battles.
Sure, that's the common view.
But what does the sheer extraordinary effort put into non-survival elements tell us? What does the monumental scale of the rock carvings in Sweden or the intricate non-defensive frescoes in Santorini tell us about the cultural priorities of people living 4,000 years ago?
Right. They spent immense effort, not just creating, but creating things meant to last and impress.
What were they truly trying to preserve for the future? That's something for you, the learner, to consider as you process the global reach of this ancient period.